On this episode, we'll be exploring some of the unique elements that make Lockhart so cosmopolitan, from the growing Irish music session scene to conversations with incredibly talented artists who prefer to keep their work unseen. There's always something interesting happening in this funky little town. I'm Stephen Collins, and this is 78644. In this episode, we're exploring the Case Room in Lockhart. It's a hidden gem that blends history, craft, and vibe into the heart of the barbecue capital. So whether you're a local or just passing through, this space offers something special. We'll talk with the owner, Jenn Hodges, about what makes the Case Room a must-visit, from its curated selection of goods to the vision behind it.
So we started this bar to have kind of another place in Lockhart to meet and gather. And when I was thinking about what kind of drinks we would serve here, I kind of did a deep dive into classic cocktails and old world spirits. And I have found that it's the same things that get me excited about music. This is just kind of a classic gin martini, 2 parts gin, 1 part vermouth. If I were making it for myself, I'd do 50-50 gin and vermouth, but this is our house martini here.
Where do you still stay? You're in Denver. What part of town? Staying on top of the palace.
Nice and diluted into a chilled glass. And then our house martini also has olive juice, so a little hit of the good stuff.
It was kind of downtown. We weren't far from the town square.
And of course, our Spanish manzanilla olives.
We stayed by the mean quirky pub. Oh, the quirky pub.
There you have it.
Can I get a Manhattan?
Folk music's from a place, it's, from a certain locale, and there's a lot of tradition in folk music, and I've found the same tradition in these spirits that have been made by the same families around the world for generations. And so there's kind of equally a nerd in both respects, and that I really like telling their stories and keeping the tradition going.
Next, we're unraveling the intricate world of Gayla Partridge, a Lockhart-based artist whose work infuses vintage anatomical art, folklore, and the macabre into mesmerizing embroidery, as well as sculpture and intricate beadwork. She was kind enough to invite us into her home studio to see the incredible pieces that she's been working on, as well as talk to us a bit about her process and what drives her to create such detailed and beautiful work.
I'm Gayla Partridge. I'm an artist in Lockhart, and I do mixed media bead, like French beading, a little bit modern sort of assemblage, essentially. It was always my focus, very much so. My parents were very encouraging of it. So I've done art my entire life in some form or another. Pre the photography, pre the stitching, pre all that. Early 20s, I did stained glass. So there's just been cycles of different media depending on, what I had access to at the time. Photography was where I found the most success and ran a very successful, and it took off. Did not expect it to. I had a great partner at the time, Lisa, and we did that for 15 years. It had a book that came out that did really, really well that's out of print now. And so I pretty much focused on that. So I've worked in corporate. I've had my corporate job for 26 years. So while I was running the photography company, while I've done all these other things, I've actually worked for the telecommunication company that I work for. So I did 26 years. It'll be 27 in September. And it was initially started out as pinup photography, just because I liked it. At the time, I was swing dancing a lot, saw a lot of Dale Watson. And so it was just a sort of a product of my environment at the time. And as I started to get into it, realized that pinup, was great. And I did it the entire, it was, for lack of a better word, the moneymaker, right? But a couple years in, really started getting into the high concept. So I found out that I didn't really like the photography as much as I liked building the giant sets and building the costumes and, the whole entire thing. And at the end, I would photograph it. That was sort of like an aside. So if you were to look at the body of my work over, the last 30 years, there are some themes that you'll find in the first book, which was the photography. You'll find in the second book, which was the stitching, not only color theory in terms of I tend to gravitate to the exact same colors depending, regardless of the medium, but also I've always laid heavy in anatomy and, Baroque things. And so the stitching happened because at the time I didn't have a hobby. Teddy, I had closed the studio, the photography studio. We retired. Like we basically said, hey, I think we've done it. I picked up stitching and I can't even remember. It was probably prompted by something I saw like on Instagram or something and was like, oh shit, I could do that. And the other thing about embroidery is it's cheap. It is like an incredibly cheap hobby to do. The materials alone, there's like almost no cost layout. And so at the time, because I had no intention of, it was truly a hobby. So within a year, I had a book deal because I just can't help it. Nowadays, there's a ton of anatomy, embroidery, it's an entire genre. But at that time, it really wasn't. There wasn't a lot of it. Merging a lot of the botanicals with the anatomy, which you see like everywhere now, like Etsy's just full of it. But at the time, I really didn't see a lot of it. And so that was cool because I felt like I wasn't doing what everyone else was doing. And embroidery was so easy. Like I didn't need to, like you watch a couple of YouTubes and you can do embroidery. It's not that hard. So that's how the embroidery came along. And we actually happened to have a friend who was working for a book company. And he just reached out cold and said, hey, you got a lot of work now and it's really cool. Want to do another book? And of course, I'm an overachiever. And I was like, of course I do. So I spent the next year working on it all the time because I didn't have enough work for, you have to have a lot of work for a book. And I had hobby stuff. And so it worked out because of the photography. I could photograph all the work. So that, made it easier too, right? Because I already had all the photography stuff. So it was really easy in terms of did the work, photographed the work, and then we had the book. So that's kind of how it happened. But it also is very much in line with the things that I've chosen to treat my anxiety. So I picked up the embroidery to stay busy, but I have done that my whole life. Like it is also why I'm really good at my job. I'm able to stack a lot of information and it tends to quiet my mind. And the busy work of stitching or the busy work of French beading, it's like how you get like a relief of cognitive load when you watch a movie that you've watched 50 times over. There's no surprises, it's very calming. The hand action is very much like that for me. And so it all sort of worked out when I was choosing the next medium. It was very much, I need something similar to that. I feel like I've done the stitching thing. I don't have anything new in me. And so I picked the French beading, which Russian YouTube helped me out with a lot because I had no idea how to do it. And I did watch a lot of YouTube to figure that out. It's much harder and it's much more expensive. Yeah, but it was much harder. The ramp up, the number of like things I had to search out on how to do it was much different than embroidery. I will literally picture the completed piece in my head and then I will execute it. It does morph a little in the process, but not a lot. And so really I have an end goal. I generally know the dome size, like I choose, because these things can't sit outside of a dome. Nobody wants to dust that. It's like impossible. So I do usually start with either an antique case or a dome for practicality reasons. So then you're constrained by the size of whatever it is, the thing that you've chosen to put it in or put it inside. And then it's usually a small element that I build the rest of it on. And you can see it in some of them. You're like, oh, I get where like the thing was that you were doing and then the rest of it built around it. But even these things, I don't make them to sell them. Like I make them for the process of making them because they treat my high anxiety. And so I can sit for 12 hours and fiddle and I am completely content to just make the parts. And then once you've made, a whole table full of parts, my favorite part is putting it all together. But that that takes like a weekend, right? But you can make parts for weeks. Couple of things. I don't mean to ghost people. When it comes to talking about the work, it's just not priority, right? And so to sell a work, to get a gallery, to do all that stuff that we did for the photography, I just don't have it in me. And a lot of it's privilege. Like, I make the art because it treats something in me and I enjoy it and I love having them. Like, when I walk in, I'm like, oh, all my babies are here, but I also don't need to feed my kid on it. So it's like a level of privilege that I get to make very beautiful things. But at the end, I'm not like, okay, who's going to buy this thing? Because I got to make another one, and then I got to make another one, and then I got to make another one. The downside is, after a couple years, you've got 50 domes in your house, and, it's a little much. And I never have to make a decision based on, oh, would this sell? I don't care. Like, great if it does eventually, but any decision I make is because, I want it in the TV room when I'm watching Ghostbusters for the 50th time. And the piece is like right there. Like, I'll look at it forever. In the bead series, I would say 45, roughly. Yeah. With some bigger ones and then some smaller ones, but about 45. Oh, how long does it take to make one? It depends on if it's heavy in the French beading, which is the fundamental sort of for lack of a better, like the crocheting of the actual bead pieces. But you'll notice that some of them are heavier in like shells and things, right? That doesn't take me any time. So I would say the average one, I can make parts for, and remember, I work 50 hours a week at my day job and I have a 10-year-old. So they can take about 3 weeks to make all the parts and about a weekend to put it together. Yeah. And that's these, which are the ones that I prefer to make. The cat that I'm working on now is much slower. It's just a different technique. That one's going to take me that's probably about 6 weeks. But these, the ones that I prefer making, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks, 3 weeks. I think I realized I was treating it with the focused hand. Like, that's where all of a sudden I found, and it was the embroidery. So it was much after the photography, I found my brain was calmer the more I stitched, right? And as anything, I'm obsessive. I'm an artist. You get obsessive about stuff and would do more and more. Just found that it really just sort of calmed the noise. And so when I was done with the stitching, I literally was like, what else can I do with my hands? And ran across French beading and was like, oh, I can do that. And it actually soothes me even more.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming to our luncheon. We're so pleased that you're here. We're going to get straight to the questions. We have Mr. Will Rhodes of Courthouse Nights here, and he's here to answer them. Will Rhodes?
Thank you, Miss Rach. It was a pleasure watching you eat those pigs in a blanket so fast. We're here to discuss the 5th season of Courthouse Nights. It's going to be a very special season, and we'll be discussing the lineup and maybe some of the things that go on here in this town to bring the public this community event. First question, please.
Is it true that last year's event led to an unprecedented number of spontaneous conga lines?
We noticed that it was more than spontaneous. It seemed instantaneous. And we are expecting more conga lines, but we hope for them to be instantaneous.
Mr. Rhodes' tailgating's looking like it's going to be bigger than ever. Will you be requiring permits for converting pickup trucks into pools?
That'll be a hard no on that. We have hired, one of our sponsors is a pool cleaner people, you might know, Instacleon toilet pools, and we're going to have them out here. So you might see some trucks with some pools, but we'll probably maintain that, and that will be in the summer still from 12 to 7.
There's a rumor around town that you're getting all your bands at the old mall.
Yes, Miss Kennedy, that is true. But they're high-class bands, some of the best talent you've ever seen them, some of the best local talent you've ever seen. They are winners of some Grammys. You look great.
Mr. Rhodes, we have a question here about wondering if Courthouse Nights music has secret messages in what they call backmasking in the music that might be leading to any kind of satanic influence or general wickedness in our youth.
It's also going to be a hard no. We are not promoting that. We enjoy the children walking around on what some might say the dark side of the courthouse, which we have seen. But in general, it's a family fun event. We encourage you to bring wagons, take photos, shop locally. No Satan. Thank you. Next question.
When are we going to find out who's playing?
I think right now.
Yeah, we're ready to tell y'all.
April 18th, Ellis Boulard. May 16th, The Point. June 20th, two-time Grammy Award winners, the Los Bayou Ramblers. July 18th, Los Juanos. And August 15th, Queen tribute band, Magnifico. Is there any last thing you'd like to tell us?
I love baby back ribs. We'll see you on the lawn, April 18th.
Well, rock isn't dead. Gravity Hotel blends post-punk and alt-metal, drawing from Queens of the Stone Age and Alice in Chains. Formed here in Lockhart in 2023, their heavy yet atmospheric performances never disappoint. Inspired by Stanley Kubrick's 2001 A Space Odyssey, Gravity Hotel delivers raw, dynamic performances and new music here in 2025.
I started working at Sunflower and Friends probably in 2022. I just got to know Chaz and Naomi from working at the coffee shop. I think they're wonderful people. I just really think the world of them, and I think the work they're doing is very important. And I was new in town. I'm playing drums and looking for a gig, so they were nice enough to accommodate me. And so I taught over there for about a year or two. And just a lot of really talented kids in this town, one of whom was named Libby, daughter of Dan Goodman. She's very talented, has great taste in music, loves Nirvana, Foo Fighters, stuff like that. And Dan would come to pick her up after each lesson, so I got to know him. One day he's wearing a Russian Circles t-shirt, and I thought, man, this is my friend right here. This is a good guy to know.
I felt the same. We started connecting about different bands that we kind of had in common, and our big thread was Minus the Bear, obviously, that we kind of connected with. And he's like, there's no way you're the only other person in this town who knows Minus the Bear, and then I love him, you know. So that kind of gave us a connection to, well, let's just see how this goes. And, you know, when we finally did decide to kind of meet and jam, the chemistry was just instant.
I agree. Yeah, Dan's the only guy in town who will mention Minus the Bear and the Mars Volta in the same sentence. So I knew that was my guy. And Dan just has these great leadership abilities. And so he kind of took the lead of forming a group and coming up with names and writing songs. And so, yeah, it all felt like it came together very naturally.
Yeah, and, you know, we had the luxury of having Josh Schaefer, who's one of the few locals that I've ever met. He's still here, local bass player. We met him through Alex Cady. And he was like, this sounds like a really cool, interesting project. I think I might want to sit down on it. And we felt that instant chemistry together. And you know, no egos between all of us. And we were just like, man, this is so rare to have something this organic, this local, you know, because the thought was, are we going to have to grab a musician to fill the gap from Austin and have to worry about logistics and how that's going to work on a weekly practice, you know, where are we going to practice, you know, who's driving where. So it all worked out pretty well. We're just practicing here once a week. And
yeah, and I thought what was really smart when you decided you wanted to start playing music again, you sat down before our first practice and came up with a mission statement. There's this bulleted list of, okay, we wanted to have a driving beat, but we wanted to be groovy. And it was really nice to have those points to kind of anchor ourselves as we're creating, to say, okay, let's get wild and creative, but does it drive? Does it groove? Is it catchy still, even though it's heavy? And having that kind of forethought has really guided us well, I think.
Yeah, thanks. I've often thought that, without a mission statement, how are you gonna know where you're heading? So it's great to always just kind of have it in your forefront as you're writing and being creative, that you're checking off a couple of core boxes that we all decided on. Like if we all have a part ownership in the mission statement, then the corral's pretty big as far as how creative we can get, as long as it's got those boxes checked.
Yeah, so just infinite gratitude to Sunflower and Friends. They've brought so many people together, and they've helped so many people realize, what a special scene there is in Lockhart. There's just something really magic happening here right now. And it's just a very special moment in time. I feel so grateful to be here, and the scene is burgeoning as we speak. And as we were saying earlier, when we first moved here, it was a lot of singer-songwriter stuff, country blues, which I love, but there wasn't a lot of hard rock, loud, fast, noisy. So it feels really exciting to be kind of at the forefront of blasting people's hair back, you know what I mean? Rest in peace, Arts and Crafts. That was such a special place for this type of music and that type of scene. And Fridays and Saturdays, they would have those types of shows there. So not exactly sure where the movement's going next. Load Off Fannies is a great spot for loud, fast type of music. But if the musicians are here, we'll find a way.
Yeah. So we had been throwing around a couple of different options of band names, and one of the ones that I came up with was from 2001: A Space Odyssey, a Kubrick movie, and I was always fascinated with these parts of the movies where they were traveling in a spaceship to Jupiter, and they're in these big, missions, and inside these spaceships were these hotels in the background of, like, you'd see like Hilton, in the background, you see like a Howard Johnson sign inside the spaceship. And I was just thinking that's just so unique and interesting way to look at a future, because I think this movie was in the 68 or 69 or something. And for him to have that kind of thought process that far long ago, and just to imagine that, like, you're going to need hotels in space. Yeah, like eventually, because that's just the wave of travel is that. I thought that was a really cool concept, and we were throwing around words, and I was like, Gravity Hotel, it sounds got a nice little fun ring to it, and it's kind of an homage to that Kubrick film scene. And I said it, and both Josh and Danny were pretty high on that.
Yeah, I really responded to it. It definitely made me think of Stanley Kubrick. Gravity made me think of that movie with Sandra Bullock, which I love, and the hotel part made me think of The Shining. So right off the bat, Gravity Hotel, you hear it, it's got kind of a sci-fi, almost horror type of connotation to it. And Dan's really run with that. And if you listen to the lyrics, Dan is such a storyteller, and each song kind of is a, each song kind of paints a picture. And right. So you definitely get these sci-fi moments as you listen to the song, and these horror moments. We've got a song about a vampire. We've got a song about a witch. And so, I don't know, it's kind of hearkening back to like the Misfits. I mean, how many songs did they have about ghouls and the undead? We're both fans of My Chemical Romance. They have songs about vampires. And so there's kind of this fun storytelling element to it. We're trying to, paint a picture. He's serious about the storytelling, but also we're at the same time not trying to take ourselves too seriously. Yeah, I definitely think anyone who's a fan of Stanley Kubrick would be a fan of the thematic imagery of our music.
Yeah, if they definitely got involved in the lyrics of the songs, I think they'd find it a lot of irony in that field of that industry. And for me, like, I've always been a really big fan of vocalists who write things that you can easily picture what it is they're talking about. In a visual sense, you're hearing what they're singing about, and you can immediately envision what that scene looks like. For me, I don't have a great memory. So for me, like, when I write lyrics, I'm thinking that I need to write in that manner so I can visually see it to remember the vocals for later.
Smart.
And it kind of just worked out that way. And yeah, it's been fun to show these guys in practices when we're writing these songs, like what my visual image of what the storyline is for the song, and then they kind of take it and run with it, with the music's part.
Yeah, so it's nice. It gives you some imagery as you're listening to kind of wrap your head around the subject matter, but I also feel like it's reflective of something that is more relatable to, I think a lot of your songwriting comes from being a father and looking at the world in its current state, the prospect of nuclear war or school shootings, that we put this kind of sci-fi twist on it, but the subject matter is actually still very important and artistically fulfilling.
Yeah, there are a lot of things that I write about are very conducive to my normal daily life. And we have a song that's coming out it's called Bullet in the China Shop, and it's essentially the fears of being a parent, having to send your child to school every day. And now that we have the type of environment that we have with handguns, and it's just it's a scary moment. I mean, to have to think every single day, is my kid coming home today? So, we typically don't write too heavy of subject matter, but this was something that has been on my mind for a long time, and the words just kind of flew out because I've been thinking about it so much, and it kind of stuck. And so, I mean, we're probably not too heavy in terms of an entire set list of originals, just heavy material, but there are certain, pointed things that I wanted to get across as a band, and
Yeah, I think from one song to the next, the goal is to entertain, but also the goal is to make you think and make you feel and reflect on, what you may be going through in your own life. So yeah, from one song to the next is kind of a different story each time, but sure to pull you into Dan's world.
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty accurate.
Thank you, Stephen.
Yeah, I appreciate it. You guys have a good one.
To you can't picture, Leonard Skinner without Ronnie Van Zant, and Ronnie Van Zant without the high roller hat with the rattlesnake band on it. The high roller actually was created by my grandfather for my dad, who at the time was selling insurance in Waco. When he sent it to him, he put a note with it that, he wasn't anything but a high roller, wanted to go have coffee with the ladies selling insurance instead of coming back to work for him. Of course, that triggered it because he started selling more hats than he was insurance.
Come on down to Texas Hatters, where we top the best.
Looking for a getaway with a little extra charm? Welcome to Birdie House, a stunning neoclassical Victorian mansion right in the heart of historic Lockhart, Texas, where small-town charm meets big-time memories. Whether you're booking a weekend retreat, weddings, or a photo shoot, Birdie House blends antique elegance with modern comfort for an unforgettable stay. And here's a little insider tip. When you book through Airbnb, tell the host to, quote, tip the band, and you'll get a discount. Ready to experience Texas hospitality at its finest? Visit birdiehouse.com to learn more. Birdie House. Stay a while. Make some memories.
When I take my sugar to tea, all the boys are jealous of me. Well, thanks for tipping the band.
Join 78644 Friends, a community making sure musicians can thrive. For $5 a month, 100% of your donation goes straight to the artist. Thanks to our subscribers, we've raised over $8,000 and counting. Just recently, we tipped musician Dustin Welsh $474. By subscribing, you're truly helping. Sign up today at 78644podcast.com.
78644, tastiness, yes, ma'am.
In this next segment, we'll be listening to Forgotten Coast by James McMurtry, a master storyteller whose songs capture the grit and soul of real life. Forgotten Coast paints a vivid picture of Florida's untouched shoreline, a metaphor for resilience, isolation, and a world fading from memory.
Down the highway south I'll go. We were hitchcut to Port St. Joe. I'm gonna walk the beach with a pirate's ghost, and we'll haunt that old forgotten coast. I'm gonna trade my car and change my name, and put Wesson oil in my bar and chain. I'm gonna fix a roadkill black bear roast and get fat on that forgotten coast. No one's gonna find me there with my steel guitar and my rocking chair, among the seafood shacks and oyster boats. I'll hide out on that forgotten coast. Fishing pole and my rocking chair. Tell the one I'll miss the most, he's down on that forgotten coast. Down the highway south I'll go. We were hitchcut to Port St. Joe. I'm gonna walk the beach with a pirate's ghost, and we'll haunt that old forgotten coast. I'm gonna cut touch the pain. Tell the one I'll miss the most, he's gone down that forgotten coast. Tell the one I'll miss the most, he's down on that forgotten coast.
Next, we're stepping into the lively world of the Irish music session held at Arts and Crafts in Lockhart. Every month, musicians gather to share their rich tradition of Irish folk tunes, filling the space with the sounds of fiddles, flutes, harps, guitars, and heartfelt melodies. So whether you're a seasoned player or just love good music and a pint, this session is a true celebration of culture and camaraderie. In fact, it's grown to be one of the largest in the state of Texas, which begs the question, do we need the creamy pints? Or do the creamy pints need me?
My name is Jamie Mays. I've been playing Irish music full-time for about 10 years. I'm originally from Elgin, so east of Austin, so I frequent the Irish music sessions here in the Austin area, including Lockhart.
My name's Pat Horn. I've been coming since like the first or second session they've had here. And I'm primarily of Irish descent. And got to have something to do on a Sunday afternoon, so come down and have a few drinks and listen to good music and have a good time.
My name is Jay Purrier, recent Lockhart local as of 2020, moved out here during the pandemic. I am the founder and organizer here of the Lockhart Irish Music Session.
My name is Thomas Scrouser. My friends call me Doc, and I play Irish harp, as I've done for about the last 33 years. I enjoy playing solo, but really what makes me happiest is sitting in a room full of other Irish musicians and playing tunes half the night. We have a number of instrumental tune sessions in the Austin area. We've been here at Lockhart Arts and Craft now for 3.5 years, and I am so sorry to see this place go. It has given us a wonderful home in all this time, coming right out of the pandemic when we were not able to play together for a couple of years.
So what got me into Irish music? I've always loved it when I was younger. I always loved hearing the music. I learned how to play a few tunes while I was learning from a country fiddler. And then in 2015, I discovered the O'Flaherty Irish Music Retreat. And that is a retreat in Midlothian or south of Dallas where you can go there. It's a music retreat. It's 4 days. You can learn from world-class musicians. You can learn enrichment topics.
The way this whole started, I've been playing Irish music since 2010. I play an instrument called the barroom, which is an Irish drum. And pandemic was really devastating to the Irish music community because this music is meant to be played in close quarters, knee to knee. I mean, when you have an airborne virus, you don't want to sit next to a flute player blowing air, unfortunately. So we couldn't do this for 14 months. We were all locked away from each other. And the session that I played at normally was B.D. Riley's Austin downtown at 6th and Brazos. And unfortunately, that pub could no longer stay open, and we lost that session. And I was heavily, heavily grieving that. And when the square in Lockhart opened up in May and June of 2021, got to come out and see, wow, we just moved to a really amazing small town here. This is awesome. And came into the bar for the first time, met the owners. I just casually mentioned I play Irish music, and The owner, Sarah Barr, she didn't miss a beat. I did not solicit a thing. She just organically said, we would love to host something like that. And then my antenna just shot straight up. And I'm like, yeah, I can make that happen. Okay, so we planned it out for a couple months just to see how the infections counts were going and how the pandemic was processing. It finally got to about October of 21. It came down enough to where we thought, okay, if everybody wears masks indoors, we might be able to do this safely. So that first session, we had 18 musicians show up because we were just so hungry to play together, again, each other. And it was just the most amazing thing. And it's grown from that. This is rapidly becoming one of the largest sessions by size in the state. Our largest turnout was 28 musicians. And we might break that today. We're going to see. But that's considered ginormous. A regular session is between 4 to 6 to 8. 8's a large session. 28, that's almost an orchestra.
I enjoyed Irish music a little bit anyway. I enjoy Renaissance festivals, and Renaissance festivals don't really have a lot of actual Renaissance music. Most of the music there is Irish. So I was kind of acquainted with it. I'd seen a couple people playing harp here and there, and that looked kind of interesting. I never thought I would ever do such a thing myself, but I was with some friends in 1992. We were driving past a pawn shop in Austin, and there was a harp in the window, very much like the one I have today. And it was a boring Saturday afternoon. We thought we would just go in and play with it.
I would love to thank Arts and Crafts for hosting us all these years. This place is so unique and so special. And yeah, I'm sad to see you guys go, but there's so many memories here. And, I think, I wish you guys luck on your next endeavor, and Irish music will still be here in Lockhart thanks to y'all.
We'd like to thank our sponsors, Texas Hatters, Well of Foods, Thunderbird Bars, and our in-kind sponsors, Printing Solutions, Courthouse Nights, The Rock House Airbnb, Birdie House Airbnb, and Gaslight Baker Theater, along with Crystal Glaze Photography. 78644 is produced by Kate Collins, recorded at Troubadour Image and Sound, and filmed in Lockhart, Texas. Edited by GHA Marketing, social media managed by GHA Marketing with help from Crystal Glaze. Music this episode was by Gravity Hotel, Melissa Carper, James McMurtry, the Lockhart Irish Music Session, and myself, Stephen Collins. A big thank you to Brandon Gray for his cinematography on the Irish Music Session. Our show is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon, Radio Public, YouTube, and everywhere else where podcasts are streamed. Thanks for tuning in.